Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. I hope everyone had a glorious Thanksgiving. I hope your turkey was moist, the football was great, and the stuffing was out of this world. The pups and I spent Thanksgiving Day in Frederica River, just anchored right in front of Fort Frederica. Fort Frederica. In Georgia, it was a wonderful day. Mid-70s, we grilled. I had some brats. The kids had chicken. We both had rice and peas. It was wonderful. It was a good Thanksgiving. So I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Last week when we left off, we had just gone down the Pungo River and anchored for the evening in Slade Creek. The next morning we got up and we went down the Pungo River. We crossed the Pamlico River and we went through this canal here. I never can remember the name of this canal. Maybe it's the Gale Creek Canal, I'm not sure. But from there we went into the Bay River, and the Bay River empties out into Pamlico Sound. But we took a turn and we went down the Neuse River, and we anchored for the night over here in Adams Creek. And from there we went through the Adams Creek Canal, and we finally made it out to the coast, which was in Beaufort, North Carolina. I think that's probably about as far as we'll get today, so we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. After a couple of days in Slade Creek, we were chomping at the bit to get on the road again. We wanted to get going right at first light because we had a long way to make that day. We wanted to make it all the way down to Adams Creek, and that meant we would have to go down the remainder of the Pungo River, cross Pamlico River, make it out to the Bay River, and then go down Neuse River, and finally make it to Adams Creek. I believe it was right around 43 miles. It was somewhere in that area, and that's a long run for us. So we wanted to get up and get going right at first light. And in this region, we didn't even really have to take into account the tides. This region is not dominated by tides. It is dominated by wind. So this area is huge bodies of water. You've got Pamlico Sound, you've got Currituck Sound, you've got the Albemarle Sound, huge rivers, Alligator River, Pungo River, Pamlico River, the Neuse River. And this is such a large water sink. Once you're down in Georgia in the creeks and the rivers down there, they're smaller, and there aren't these huge bodies of water. So you might have a 9 to 10 foot tide swing. And in this area in North Carolina, the meat of North Carolina, that just isn't the case. There's such a large volume of water there that the tides really don't affect it. The wind affects it much more than the tide. So we didn't really have to take the tides into account at all. Once we get beyond Adams Creek, once we get out to the coast in Beaufort, North Carolina, then we do have to start paying attention to the tides because they do start to play in a lot more. But in these regions, it is very wind-driven, and the wind was projected to be calm this day. We were back in the ICW doldrums. This fall's been very calm, so it seems like it's been either rain or shine. It's either been 30-knot winds that we didn't want to go out in, or it's been 5-knot winds where we really couldn't sail. So, it is what it is. You kind of have to go with what you're given. And in true El Jaleo fashion, I'm going to go ahead and contradict what I just said. For the vast majority of the day and the days previous, we hadn't been able to sail. But once we got out into the Neuse River, and that's Hanwi playing with a rawhide behind me. She's getting after it, so sorry for the background noise. But once we were going up the Neuse River, we had wind coming in from the ocean over Pamlico Sound. It was a very light wind, but it did give us about an extra knot of speed. So we had the head sail up, and we were actually able to sail for about 2.5 hours up the Neuse River, which was wonderful. As we entered Adams Creek, we got an unwelcomed reminder that we weren't in Kansas anymore. In the Beaufort area, there are tons of sport fishermen, big sport fishing boats, big Viking tri-deck, the whole deal, 65, 70, 80 feet. These things are absolute beasts, and they put off a big wake. Now, a lot of times if you meet a large vessel like that, in a small creek like Adams Creek. This Adams Creek looks reasonably wide, but it's very shallow once you get outside of the channel, and the channel's only maybe 50 yards wide, if that even. So the area that you have to navigate in is limited. Now, if a big sport fisherman goes by you at full speed out in Cape Fear River or Pungo River or Pamlico River, it's totally fine, and it's expected. I would never expect anyone to slow down when you're in a big wide river. Sailboats, we can turn into the wake, you know, and absorb the wake on the front of the, you know, on the bow. That's no problem at all. Even if we're in a big river, a lot of times a boat will call and say, you know, we're coming up on your stern, we'd like to give you a slow pass. And I'll be like, heck no, just keep coming, don't get off plane. Just keep going and I'll turn into your wake, it's no problem. But when boats do it in small confined areas like this, it's really annoying. And more often than not, it is sport fishermen that do it. I know you can't paint with a broad brush and say all of them, but you know, about 25% of them will just go by you 20 feet off your port side at full send. So it's a little annoying, and we had 2 in a row here that came right by. So, but you know, what are you gonna do? Not everyone is as courteous as they could be, but such is life. We did anchor for the evening in Adams Creek, and this is just a small pocket. It's in front of a little residential area, and it's the only pocket we've found that's 8 to 10 feet deep, depending upon which way the wind is blowing. So we don't like to stay there very often. It is right off the main channel, so we do catch a lot of wake from passing boats, and it can just be uncomfortable. You know, if a big boat goes by, even if they're going by slowly, they can, when you're stationary, if they're throwing off some wake. Are you okay, Wubbs? What's going on? Well, do you need to come in? Would you like to come in while? Okay, you just relax. Sorry about that. So you won't let me finish this week? Come on in. Come on, Wubbs. Come on, princess. Come on. Okay, just relax. Let me get this done. As I was saying, you know, you can get rolling side to side here. So we only stayed for one night. We slept in the next morning because as we left Adams Creek, we were leaving the wind-driven region of the Intracoastal Waterway, and we were entering the tidal-driven region. Tides play a big role in everything going forward. Once you enter into Adams Creek Canal, which we were right on the edge of, that's when currents start to come into play again. And if we slept in a little bit this morning, we would be riding the current all the way down to Beaufort, which is fun. Going through small canals with strong currents, if you're going with the current, can be a lot of fun. And it's a neat area. You're getting back into a lot of the more densely populated areas. Out in the larger bodies of water, you'll see houses here and there, but you're pretty isolated. And it's kind of fun to see, you know, houses lining the entire canal. So it's fun going through that area. And then once we got out on the coast by Beaufort, we ran into something I was not expecting. Coming into Beaufort, you go underneath of a fixed highway bridge, and then directly after that you go right through a bascule railroad bridge. And right beyond that is the Beaufort Inlet, which is a big, heavily traveled inlet, both recreationally and by, you know, cargo ships. And right on the other side of the bascule bridge, there was, I could see it on AIS, there was a cargo ship headed straight for us. And I couldn't see it yet. But I knew it was there, so it looked like it was going forward directly into the channel that we were going to be going into, and the current, we were going with the current, so I didn't know which way this cargo vessel was going, and we were headed straight for it. And it was either going to one of two docks or terminals. They're at a right angle to each other, so depending upon which way it was going, I had to you know, react in the opposite direction. And it looks very obvious on the time lapse which way it's going, especially when you see the tugs. Once I saw the tugs, I knew where it was being pushed to. But here we were transitioning also from going with the current to going against the current. And when you're in a low power boat like ours, it's always a little bit of a tenuous transition. You can get pushed around a little bit. And then we had to contend with the wash from the tugs. So it was just a little bit of hoop jumping that we had to do when when coming through there. And we anchored for the night just beyond the big cargo vessel terminals, right in front of Sugarloaf Island. As we round the corner here, you can see the sandy beach just off on our port side, or the left-hand side of the screen. And the trip from Adams Creek down to Sugarloaf Island is very short. It's maybe only 15-18 miles, something like that. So it's still relatively early in the day. So the pups and I, we got into Frank and Beans, our slowly deflating dinghy and outboard, and we went over to the sandy beach. There was no one there, so the dogs could run free off leash, and we spent about an hour playing on the beach. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Sponton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.